Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of JT Invests in You. Of course, I am your host, JT, and today we have a great episode. We have Algodex, or Alexander Trefonas, the founder of Algodex, and Jeff Callaway, the President of Algonaut Capital, joining us to speak of Algodex. Algodex is an order book decentralized exchange on Algorand, and it is launching on Thursday. I spoke to Alex about 5 months ago, and a lot has changed since then, so I'm super excited to have this conversation. And of course, for anyone listening, if you have any questions, just leave those in the chat, and we will get to those towards the end of the episode. So without further ado, let me just bring in our guests today. All right, welcome, Alexander and Jeff. I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you coming on. It's really a pleasure. I mean, a lot has changed since we last spoke, Alex. I mean, I know when we spoke about 5 or 6 months ago, you were really just towards the beginning of it. I think Algorand maybe had one application on mainnet at this point, and so much is about to launch over the next couple of months, and I know a lot of people are really excited. So why don't we just dive right into it for the audience. And for those that don't know, because a lot of my audience is new and a lot of people are new to the Algorand ecosystem, how about you just give a quick introduction of who you are and what Algodex is?
Sure. So my name is Alex Trefonas. I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been programming pretty much my whole life. I got really interested in Algorand about a year ago. I've been kind of tinkering around with blockchain technology for about a decade, off and on, and I noticed last April that Algorand still has no DEX. And I'm like, okay, maybe if nobody else is going to do anything, I could be one person who changes this, because I know that eventually I could get it all working and done. So I started working on it. It soon became very kind of hyped up in the community, which gave me a lot, which kind of inspired me to then leave my job and work on it. We got a grant from the Algorand Foundation, and then kind of just took things from there. So we've been working on it for about I'd say 9 or 10 months now, and we're ready to release it. So Algodex is essentially very unique decentralized trading platform, because unlike almost all the others, it does not use liquidity pools. It uses limit orders, similar to a more classical exchange like you see on a stock exchange or something like that. So basically, different participants can place orders, by setting a limit price, either as a buy order or as a sell order for any asset on Algorand, and then other people can come in and then actually buy those assets or sell to their bids. So it's pretty interesting though, just because of its uniqueness, because it has a lot of elements that centralized exchanges happen, but Algodex is completely decentralized technology, meaning that all the data is actually on the blockchain. So
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting parts of Algodex, because I know there's a lot more sophisticated traders out there. I mean, the AMMs are great to swap, but they don't allow for some of the sophisticated trades that you can do from a centralized exchange. So that's really great. And Jeff, Algonaut Capital, I believe, recently acquired Algodex. Is that correct? And you are the president of Algonaut Capital. Could you speak to us a little bit about yourself and that that acquisition? Sorry.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So I was about 20 years in finance up in Canada, actually. And so we were putting together, well, I was part of putting together all kinds of different companies, right from naming them to putting the teams together, financing them, founding them, taking them public, looked at a ton of different business plans across all different kinds of sectors. Left finance world a couple of years ago, started up another company, and then started to do kind of a deep dive into crypto, well, maybe 3 years ago, I guess now. And that really led me to Algorand as sort of a superior technology and crypto, and as a platform to build off of. So then ended up getting connected in the Algorand community. That's how Alex and I ended up coming together. And then he was building Algodecks, and as we just got to be friendly, we were just sort of, I was giving him free advice, the proverbial free advice. And as we kind of got going, all of a sudden, it kind of dawned on me that, with this whole ecosystem growing in Algorand, but also around the opportunity set of Algodecks and what we're building here, that it was kind of like a synergy, actually, of what I can bring on the finance, legal, accounting, structuring side, and then Alex just can really focus on the tech and building out the platform. And with that, we had a bit of a eureka moment one Saturday afternoon, early last fall, and kind of over a handshake put the thing together. And Alex flew up to Calgary a couple of days after that, and we ended up kind of hashing out details. And with all this stuff, it's and in the ever evolving, changing world of crypto and government regulation and all of that, there's a lot of intricacies and complexity that you have to serve, never mind with the technology itself, of course, which has to be bulletproof. So, I think in one sense, we've got 6 different law firms that, we end up dealing with to make sure all of our bases are covered, and, other projects in the hopper and development. So everything is moving at 110 miles an hour, so to speak. So.
Yeah, and coming from a finance background, I mean, this space is very, as you said, fast moving. It's hard to tell what kind of regulations are coming. So, I mean, how hesitant are some of your peers to jump into the space? Because you still see, you still see a lot of hesitancy from, institutional investors and other companies for putting crypto on their balance sheets. There's still a lot of trepidation there. So if you could just speak a little bit towards that hesitation, do you see it changing anytime too soon?
Yeah, no, it is changing. But I'd say, like, when I talk to a lot of my old finance colleagues, really a lot of their awareness extends to, there's Bitcoin and then there's Ethereum. And, if you're really sophisticated, you've heard Polkadot or Cardano kind of thing. And the fact is, it is getting broader and broader now. We kind of see some of the stats about who is end up buying crypto or investing in crypto, getting in the space. But the fact is, it is such a large opportunity set across so many different verticals that have just can have a massive impact on the world. I think Algodecks can be one of those. But ultimately, it comes down to where we need to get crypto to be is essentially you can go to your local McDonald's, buy a $1 coffee. The transaction settles in 2.5, 3 seconds. It's secure. You don't have to be worried about getting hacked. It's completely scalable, so your transaction fees don't change if more people are using it. And like I say, it's entirely scalable, and with Algorand, the transaction fees are cheap. So, I mean, that was what the result I came to when I looked and compared all of these various cryptos, and like Bitcoin, there's Lightning Network, and it's coming, and same thing with Ethereum, and it's just ultimately to get to that real Main Street utilization, you need to be able to buy a coffee, and a $1 coffee shouldn't cost you $6.
Yep.
And you shouldn't have to wait at the till for an hour. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Alex, you recently became the Chief Technology Officer of Algonaut Capital. Is this correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. So go for it. Sorry.
So I used to be CEO of Algodev, and then after the acquisition, now I'm stepping down, basically being CTO. Now,
what would
I'll be fair. Alex runs that whole side. He may be chief CTO, I'm CEO, but we work very much as partners.
Yeah. Sometimes these labels don't. You just need them to put on paper. But
I'm doing quite a lot of the day-to-day work, including a lot of business things. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how much has your work schedule changed since changing from founder of Algodev or CEO of Algodev to CTO, but it does kind of seem like you're all in regardless.
Everything kind of blends together. I have to do some of everything.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Yeah. Now, Algonaut Capital just did a reverse merger with Mac Capital Corporation, and are seeking to go public in Canada. Is this correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So MAC is an unlisted reporting issuer in Canada, and so our intention is to list on the Neo exchange, where there's maybe a handful of crypto-related companies listed right now. It is a senior exchange in Canada, so anyone who ends up buying the equity can trade there. It acts as another, other than we have token sales that we can generate from the sale of Algodex tokens. The public markets also, in part of our attempt to get out to the broader, wider world, the stock market has a much broader kind of potential or for exposure, I guess I would say it can bring. So it's also another source of capital that we can use to end up funding the base as well. So it's kind of a matter of, as there's some arbitrage in between, the equity and the tokens as well, that people can end up investing in and making their investment choice however they see fit. But it's kind of opening up, in our own little way, a little more of the public world into the crypto space, and in particular, we'll be the first publicly traded company that sort of based around Algorand. So bringing some more exposure to Algorand as well.
Yeah, that's the part that I found most interesting, because there aren't any other companies building in the space that I even know of that are attempting to go public right now. I'm sure there's so much going on that they're attempting to do, but yeah, that's a really interesting endeavor, and I really wish you luck with it, because that's as you said, it could bring a lot more attention to Algorand, to your businesses, and just really to the whole space in general, because as more and more companies in the crypto sphere go public, it just seems to legitimize the entire space. So I think that is a completely great thing. But how about we move a little bit into Algodecks in particular? So with Algodecks, as you said, it's an order book, limit order exchange. One question I did have, will there be any stop loss features or any derivative features on the Algodecks in the future?
So on the platform we're building right now, we're trying to keep it 100% using smart contracts, and those types of things are very difficult to do purely on smart contracts. Now we do have loose plans to build another platform that's more similar to a centralized exchange, that would have more things like derivatives and futures and whatnot, sort of like DYDX for your C20 tokens. But it's not, we haven't really started on that yet. But yeah, I don't think that'll be in like the Algodecks you see today.
Yeah, of course. No, I wasn't expecting it on Thursday, but I was just curious if it was in the pipeline.
We'd have to see what we can do with smart contracts, just because they kind of limit what you're able to build compared to centralized systems.
Yeah, of course. There are certainly some limitations.
Obviously, they have a lot of advantages too, though.
For sure. Now, when mainnet goes live on Thursday, are you launching with your token as well?
No. So we are launching the token at a later date. However, we're thinking probably early March at this point. And that's basically when the TGE will happen, and then the initial backers and so on will get the token vested to them. And then we're planning on doing airdrops after that, and so on.
Perfect. And could you speak to us about the utility of the token a little bit more?
Sure. So the Algodex token is going to be basically a rewards token and a governance token. So down the road, we're going to have a second big mainnet release that's like the reward system that becomes integrated into the platform. So basically, every single trading pair is going to have its own localized rewards pool. And at that time, we're also going to incorporate trading fees. Right now, there's no trading fees in Algodex. There's only network fees. But in this big mainnet release, we'll have trading fees. The trading fees will mostly go to the people who are providing liquidity on the platform. So those are the people who are basically placing orders and then leaving them open in the order book. And then over time, they accrue to rights to the rewards from these rewards pools. And then additionally, let's say you create your own token, like JT token or something like that. Okay, you can donate your token into your rewards pool, and that's an incentive for people to then come onto the platform and trade it, and also to buy your token because they know that they would be getting these tokens as rewards by providing liquidity. So it kind of doubles as like a staking system that will work for every single ASA.
Yeah,
So
that's super interesting. Could you dive a little bit into how a governance structure would work within a application that's owned by a publicly traded company?
yeah, so a great question. So basically, the token holders will have votes on how the platform is run, and the corporation will also own a share of tokens, so it will be able to vote. Of course, Algonaut's tokens don't vest for a long time. I think the first one starts like 2 years out, so that will be delayed. But then the corporation will get a vote just like everybody else, as far as how the platform is going to be run. So
Yeah, just to pick up on that, obviously, like Algonaut, by virtue of closing the acquisition, is the majority holder right now. We've been fairly public in our, and we've posted on social media the tokenomics of Algodecks. And so to achieve that decentralized status, we will end up selling down a portion of our holdings so that we'll be well below 50%. In fact, our stated goal is to be down around 25% so that we can actually allow the token holders to end up controlling the and governing Algodecks and how it ends up moving forward. We're very transparent on that. We are not going to be selling big chunks that are unannounced. We'll be very public and transparent in how that distribution will happen. We are just finishing, if it's not almost finished right now, the Series B token sales round. And other than that, that's all we're going to be selling for about at least the next year, I think, according to our schedule. So, but in addition to that, I mean, this is also to help support the ecosystem of Algodecks, and so we've got a number of projects that we're working on that Alex will be spearheading as well. There's another one that I'm kind of excited about, a financial services platform we're calling Buyback, that will end up helping support and increasing the volumes and trading on Algodecks and sort of meet another gap in the market that we've seen out there.
Do you have? Are you able to dive a little bit deeper into? Sorry, you kind of caught me off guard throwing in the throwing in that next endeavor. But could you share any further details on that? Because that actually sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's married up. Really the power that we have with Algorand, the platform that we have with Algodecks, and then marrying in sort of connecting conventional finance, using the power of crypto really and Algorand. So that's something we'll be talking about in the coming months. But for now, let's keep the focus on Algodecks and the launch on Thursday.
Of course, I was just trying to squeeze out a little bit of alpha into this conversation. Alex, this next question is for you. I saw that on one of your tweets you had mentioned that because it's a limit order DEX that rug pulls aren't possible, or at least in the sense that they are on AMMs. And I completely understand this process, but I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there that may not. But could you elaborate for my audience what you mean by not having the ability to have rug pulls?
yeah, so in an AMM system, there's basically for every token that's trading, there's two different kind of opposing pools, and the ratio of the funds in the pools determines the price. Basically, everybody that puts liquidity into these liquidity pools is sharing the same pool with everyone else. And also, it's not very easy to see how much liquidity is there and what will happen if you trade too much and so on. So one whale who has most of the liquidity can just pull all of the liquidity out, and then it kind of screws over other people that are participating in this pool. It can also affect the price a lot. I don't know the exact mechanics of how that works, but it makes it a lot more volatile and gives bad optics. Now, on Algodex, we have an order book, and it's super easy to see the trading depth right there on the UI. Like you can see all the orders, all the sell orders. You can see how many, tokens are at each price point. And same with the buy orders. You can see all the algo liquidity and at what price point. So you can very easily visualize if you place an order, what's it going to trade at. And then since every order is owned by you, right? Other people can't take your liquidity out. You're the only person who can cancel your orders. Even we, as the operators of the platform, we can't cancel people's orders. So you're basically in control of your own money here and your own order completely. So even if some whale, say, who has a bunch of orders, cancels other orders, it's not going to affect your orders. People can still buy at the exact same price that you placed your orders for. So that's kind of one advantage here.
Yeah, that's a terrific advantage. Honestly, I mean, I'm sure there's always malicious people out there, so I'm sure there's other strategies that people will come into in the future that'll have to be patched, just because that's the way it is with every piece of software. But that is really encouraging because most of the rug pulls you see happen on AMMs. I mean, I don't know of many order book decentralized exchanges even across the entire ecosystem, let alone Algorand. But yeah, I've never heard that happening on an order book exchange. So it is really encouraging for people that have kind of been a little bit turned off from some of these ASAs because it just seems to have a regular occurrence these days.
And just to pick up on that too, like coming from that conventional finance world that I used to be involved with, I mean, that's pretty fundamental to be able to see that depth of market and putting limit orders in. Like that's pretty crucial. There's not a lot of trust in the conventional finance world about just submitting a sell order or a buy order, and we'll see how you get filled type of thing. So that was one of the big attractions to me to Algodex and what Alex was building.
Yeah, I agree, and that's actually a really great point that I honestly didn't consider at all, because it does just give much more transparency to the system you're using, as opposed to just hitting a swap button and hoping that what comes out the other side is what you anticipated. So, Alex, you had mentioned that people would be able to place buy orders on NFTs that aren't even for sale. Could you speak a little bit more on that and how it would look?
Yeah. So one unique feature of Algodex is that 100% of every ASA is tradable, unlike AMMs. So even NFTs are tradable on Algodex, and even NFTs that nobody's selling. So you can go on Algodex, you can search for someone else's NFT. Okay, and then you can start placing bids for it that will go on Algodex. And then let's say, a week later they realize this, they can go on Algodex and say, oh, look, someone wants to spend 10,000 algos on my NFT. I don't know why, but I'm going to sell it to them. So you can just, if you like someone's NFT, just place a bid on it. Now, I don't know how that person would get notified. We don't have any kind of like notification system. I can think of potential ways to do that, like maybe sending them a zero algo transaction or something, but something to think about. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. If you yourself were building out something, or if you could foresee, somebody building out something to notify these people, because that actually does sound like a great use case for this decentralized exchange. Because, a lot of these marketplaces, sometimes they don't even work properly. And it would be really interesting to see some of these NFTs being traded and actually like bid up in real time. So I think that'd be really fun for the community to see. So it really would be really cool to, because it's a decentralized application, who decides to build that out a little bit and make it more accessible to everybody, because that's super, super interesting.
Well, Alex and I were actually just talking about this just before we got on this interview, JT, because we were thinking of tokenizing your place there, and then fractionating it out, and then putting it up for bid for 1 week stays at your house, and we'll see if you accept that. If you can accept the bid.
That's a really interesting concept. So almost like timeshares, like on the open marketplace. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a super interesting concept for sure. Now, Algonaut Capital had a couple recent partnerships, one with Auto Venture Group, another with Vespertine Capital, and I believe one more, Chain Fear Capital. Could you speak a little bit on how these partnerships are going to help broaden the Algonaut ecosystem?
Is this
This is
question for me?
this is for anyone that wants to speak on that. Honestly,
Well, I can start at least.
Okay.
Awesome. Sorry, I
So
should have directed that.
with some of our partnerships, I mean, some of them are from an operational perspective, like people that will groups that will be listing on Algodex actually, and so we want to support them as we build up the ecosystem. The more people you have list on your exchange, the more sort of critical mass that you can get. But at the same time, we've been really pleased. Like I mentioned that we're just finishing off our Series B right now. We've got a ton of interest because we're just finishing off like an equity round, and we'll be going public, and be another public round and raise as we do that sort of in Q2 timeframe. But a lot of we've got some significant investors with us, like Chainfers. I guess it's associated with SoftBank, like the big Japanese behemoth. And there's also Golden Tree has been a big supporter, and Borderless Capital a big supporter. Black Dragon, Safe Launch. We've got a number of pretty sizable institutions that have invested in us, and so that gives you a stamp of credibility. Of course, you only have credibility for as long as you execute. So execution is really our number one goal, and it's not about running out and grasping too much, but it's making sure that Algodex launch goes well, that there's no hiccups, and then building on the functionality to Algodex above and beyond that. And so some of these partnerships that we've been talking about the last handful of days, and that, I mean, Alex, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, almost every day we have lots of new partnerships. It's really hard to keep up. My wife mostly handles that side. Yeah, there's they basically will help promote Algorand. Basically, the more partnerships we get, the more people can invest in the Algorand ecosystem. Even if as they invest in us, they'll also see other projects they might want to invest in. And just as more and more eyes are kind of on the whole Algorand ecosystem, it's just going to really help out every project, I think.
Alex, I have to ask, what kind of bird do you have?
So yeah, sorry you can hear him. He's actually upstairs behind closed doors in a cage, but he's still out. He's a Gende conure.
Awesome. No, that's totally okay.
Actually, everyone who ever has a call with me knows about my birds. So
no, it's honestly really funny. It brings me back because I'll just give a little backstory. I grew up in a house of like many animals, and at one point, my mother goes through phases with animals. But at one point, we had like 40 birds in the house. Like our living room was called the bird room.
Wow.
We had big scarlet macaws and things like that. She went a little overboard with it, but it was almost like every time the phone rang, they would just all decide to start chirping. So I do understand. I just had to ask. Algodex, you had mentioned that in the beginning, at least, it will not be available to U.S. users. Could you speak to why that is the case and when in the foreseeable future that could change?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's a lot of SEC regulations that don't care if you have a decentralized service or not. All they see is you have a website where people might or might not be trading, things they consider securities or might be on a security scale. They don't even make it clear like what classifies that and what wouldn't. So it's kind of complicated to untangle, and we just want to release quickly. So we unfortunately have to restrict out both the US and Canada in the initial release. However, we have a legal team working on a plan where we'll then create listing guidelines for assets. So my understanding, although they still have to create the entire plan, is that assets will fill out an application process of what their token does, like is an NFT, what's their project and so on. And then we kind of on our own categorize it and then decide what assets will be listed in the US and which ones won't be. Of course, people outside these areas can trade every single token.
So unfortunately, essentially because of U.S. regulation or maybe even lack thereof regulation, it does unfortunately lose a little bit of that permissionless side of it because, not anybody can just list it, at least for the U.S. users. I mean, I'd imagine it's going to be as permissionless as possible for everybody else.
So the smart contracts are running on Algorand. Those are global. So the smart contracts list every token, regardless of your location. But the problem is that we have backend servers that essentially cache what's on our order book. And this cached information comes from our servers and then is delivered to people. So, authorities might not understand the nuance of that. I don't want to have to explain it to them. I know Jeff doesn't. I don't want, regulators like banging on my door or sending me nasty letters or something. So, we're just going to have to hold off on the U.S.
Hey, that makes complete sense, and it's really unfortunate because as you alluded to, they don't give any guidance on what is or what isn't a security, but they're like, be careful you don't list any securities. So it's
Yeah,
it's a tight rope that you're walking there for sure.
right.
All right. Well, that actually, if you could actually speak on the listing process itself, because I know you had a bunch of different tokens reaching out to you to list their token. Will they be able to list tokens without reaching out to you in the future?
Yeah, of course. So right now it's just basically pre-listing before the public launch. We just want Algodex to have some tokens, so when we open up to the public, they don't just come to like a blank screen or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's basically pre-listings. After Algodex is available to the public, anybody can go on and list any token they want, place buy orders or sell orders for anything. So that's going to happen on Thursday.
Perfect. That's great to hear. I'm going to transition over to some of these questions we have in the chat. There's only about 4 I've seen so far. If you're listening and you have a question, just drop it on in there and we will get to it. The first one here is from Kevin, and Kevin is asking, does the software run on centralized servers such as AWS?
So good question. Basically, yes, some aspects of it do. We basically have a customized caching service that caches what's on the blockchain and then delivers that to your web browser. And that does run on AWS. The whole reason we have that is so that you have a good user experience. We did not have a caching system. There's basically too much data on the blockchain for Algodex to be able to efficiently look it up using the standard Algorand indexers. So that's what's running on AWS. It's just basically a customized caching system. The front end is hosted by a service called Vercel, which hosts next.js. I don't want to get too technical, but basically hosts like static HTML and JavaScript. I'm sure in the background they use AWS. I don't actually know for sure though, but that gets delivered to you as well. In the future though, we are going to make it downloadable so you can run Algodex on your computer. You can connect directly to the blockchain from your desktop.
Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. I appreciate that answer, and I'm sure he does too. Next up, we have Johan. And we spoke a little bit into NFTs earlier, but the Algo community is deep into NFTs. Have you thought of ways to integrate NFTs into your platform? And I would imagine maybe he's considering like a NFT, an actual official NFT marketplace, as opposed to just allowing people to bid on any ASA.
Yeah, so NFTs are already tradable on day one. However, it's not in the most user-friendly way. We don't really distinguish what's an NFT, what's not an NFT. So we are going to improve the user interface to do this. Both in Algodex, we're also exploring making an NFT marketplace that will likely use the same smart contracts, but provide like a user experience that's completely tailored to NFTs. So we're kind of starting down that road now. We don't want to do too much at the same time because we'd rather have one extremely high quality product than 10 poor quality products. So
yeah.
But yeah, we are going down that path.
Of course, and I like that answer for sure. I do agree that get it right first and then move on from there. Our next question is from John, and he's asking, I'm not sure if you've heard of Dfly, but he's asking, would USA residents be able to use Algodex through the Dfly app?
That's a great question. That's more a question for Dfly, but we first have to complete our open source SDK, and then any other platforms such as Dfly can then use our SDK, and then they may or may not be able to make these decisions on their own. Again, all the data is on the blockchain, so if somebody else wants to do whatever they want with that data, that's up to them. But we don't at this time. We don't have a partnership with them, so There's really no other details.
Awesome. And we have another question about the TGE. Joe is asking, is there any more shareable info the Algodex on the Algodex token release, pre-sale, ICO, etc.?
So all the public information is in the tokenomics. We're not having a public pre-sale because it's a huge amount to manage on the legal side. And then also because again, we are US and Canadian based, it can hurt our optics if we're doing some kind of public ICO event out of here. So we've been doing basically private pre-sales. In terms of the token release, we're planning that for early March, basically.
Yeah, just to pick up on that a little bit. So yeah, during the seed and the Series A and Series B offerings, I mean, each one of those people, it's not just about, sign a SAFT agreement and, send your money type of thing. It's also, you've got to go through anti-money laundering and KYC checks as well to make sure that we're not complicit in money laundering or anything like that, right? So it's just part of all of that regulatory complexity that we want to and need to abide by as we're seeing all the regulatory environment, shift in so many of these various countries. I mean, as many people, at least on this call, would understand. I mean, trying to get an STO done almost anywhere these days is extremely difficult. So, I mean, I've got connections over in Malta as well, and they've got regulations in place over there to actually launch STOs. I mean, but it's sort of similar to what's being done in the sort of conventional public markets space in terms of like disclosure and filing requirements and the whole bit. That's probably how the STO world is going to be evolving. That's certainly how I see it anyway. But there is a lot of lack of guidance and information out there, as we've talked about, at least in regards to the U.S. And I think it's just government authorities. It's a whole new thing for them, and they don't actually truly understand how this is going to end up unfolding. If you go and ask a regulator one thing, they will just say, just come and bring it to us, and we'll decide and let you know in several months or years.
Yeah. And of course, anything government does takes, years. They're very slow. But I totally understand, because you want to ensure the longevity of this project. You want to do everything you can to make sure you're in compliance, which is especially hard as there isn't that much guidance in the current regulatory landscape.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough, because there's so many projects that are out there that have kind of built in a regulatory light in type of environment. And I mean, we've seen it just with, what's happened with Ripple and all of that, right? So, yeah. I mean, not to cast aspersions on anyone, it was just the environment at the time. But ultimately, as the whole ecosystem and space grows, not just around Algodex and Algorand, but there's going to be, a growing number of government and regulatory eyes that will peer into the space. And, the government has a lot of power. They have limitless resources to go and investigate and make examples of anyone that they feel they may want to. And because they're judge, jury, executioner, that's a tough one to win a battle against when they really have their minds set to it. So, it's just foundational to us that we are fully compliant all along the way, and ensuring that everyone that uses our platform has that confidence as well. So,
awesome. I appreciate that response. And I believe this next question is directed towards you, Alex. And Frederico is asking, how are you going to prevent ghost liquidity? Basically, people setting limit orders way out of the range just to be eligible for potential rewards.
Well, basically, the way it works is when you place the order via the smart contracts, or if that's somehow too complicated, via oracles, it'll look at your distance from the opposite side of the spread. So your percentage distance from the opposite side will determine your rewards rate. So basically, if there's a bunch of bids and then you place a sell order, if you're, within 10%, for example, of the highest buy order when you're placing a sell order, then you're eligible for a higher rewards rate. If you're now, if you're 1,000% away from the price and your sell order will never execute because nobody will want to buy it at your crazy high price, then you won't get rewards or a very small amount of rewards.
I really like that answer because I actually had that very same thought, but I did forget to ask it. So I appreciate you asking that, Federico, because that's a terrific answer. Oh, did we just lose a little bit of volume? Okay.
I can hear you.
Cool. Something just cut out on my end. I appreciate the patience, though. So that just wraps it up for the questions I'm seeing in the chat. If there are any other ones that I missed, just throw them down in there. Is there anything that we haven't touched on today that either of you would like to bring attention to my audience?
Well, I think if people want, updates or to follow along with the project, I mean, a lot of people probably just by virtue of being on this video are following. But go to algodex.com. Algonaut.ca is the Canadian website. As we're going forward here through the go public process, we'll be filing documents on Canadian exchanges. So there's all kinds of transparency that will be involved with that, and financials and what we're investing into the company and how things are progressing. So that's pretty key. Again, algodex.com. And even if you want, check out the buyback website. We've just got a landing page there for now, but that'll evolve into something over the next few months as well. Number of projects that are coming down the pipe. So there's going to be like enhancements to Algodex's functionality. So that's going to generate a lot of interest and hopefully greater utilization by users going forward. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about what we can develop on the NFT part of the Algodex platform as well, that I think will be really useful and functional to those almost 5 million different NFTs that have been created on Algorand, and and more coming all the time.
Yes.
So, anyway, that's kind of the bottom line. This launch on Thursday is really just the beginning, and we've got a lot of projects in the pipeline to come out. So it's going to be pretty exciting times.
I agree. It is pretty exciting times for the ecosystem as a whole, but also for this project. I mean, as I said, I've been following for, probably the last 8 months. Alex and I spoke about 5 months ago, and it's an ever evolving ecosystem and an ever evolving project. So it'll be really exciting to see, maybe 5 months from now, what Algodex looks like when we speak again, if we do. I do have one last question that I did just think of. Are the private sales open to just accredited investors?
On the equity side,
for the token.
So for the tokens, the way it works is if you are in the U.S. or Canada, you have to be accredited. If you live elsewhere, you do not necessarily have to be an accredited investor. However, I should say subscriber. Every subscriber has to pass KYC though.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
AML KYC.
That's for AML.
Awesome.
Short for anti-money laundering and know your client. So,
yeah. A couple of acronyms that I feel like all of us are becoming way too familiar with these days, to be honest. Well, if there's anything else that you'd like to share, I mean, if not, then just tell my audience, where they can get a hold of you. I already have a link in the description below for Algodecks, but of course, if you want to plug your Twitters and any other socials you have, feel free.
Well, yeah, Jeff Callaway is my Twitter. It's pretty easy to find, but I mean, Algodex Official is the Twitter handle. We're always posting stuff on there. Algonaut Capital as well on Twitter, LinkedIn, but really like there's some really large Reddit groups as well for Algodex. Based on country and language that you want to converse in. It's really kind of a global phenomenon. I could give Alex a ton of credit for the exposure that he's definitely developed for Algodex and also Algorand more largely. But I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of messages on all of these various specific country streams on Algodex out there. So I mean, I'm not expecting fireworks and cannonade to go off on Thursday, but this is just going to continue to build. Just the same way that Algorand is. So,
of course.
Alex, did you want to add to that? Or?
I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, it seems like relatively exponential growth. So I wish to both of you, the best of luck, and I'm excited to play around with it on mainnet on Thursday.
Well, I hope we can satisfy relatively exponential growth. That would be a good bar to exceed. So
But I also want to talk a bit about what Jeff briefly mentioned. We have a number of Telegram groups. We have a general Algodex one. We also have some country specific ones. Like I don't know if I can list all of them. But like there's Poland, China, Turkey, Vietnam, Indonesia. Might be a few others that I'm forgetting that they might not want me to forgive anyways. Yeah, feel free to join those. Just go to the main Algodex Telegram and you can probably find the others. We also have a Discord and so on.
Yeah, that's really awesome too. I mean, I know Jeff mentioned it a little bit and gave you credit for it, but I've been noticing it too along the whole way. I mean, this project seems to be one of the most inclusive projects on the Algorand ecosystem because you've been working real hard to make sure there's translations for many, many different languages, so anyone can use this application. And I don't really, I mean, maybe I'm just not aware of it, but I don't think there are any other applications that are really focusing that hard on making sure this is a, global inclusive application. So yeah, I certainly give you a lot of credit for that, Alex. And like I said, I wish you both the best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, just comment on that quick. I gotta say, I mean, Alex and I are here in North America. JT, I'm guessing you might be too. But
yep.
I think he's in Massachusetts, like I am.
I am,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But honestly, like the interest that we get from like Europe and Southeast Asia, Australia, it's massive. Just massive. So, like this is a global phenomenon, which is speaks to the ability to connect anyone, anywhere, to transact anything. Like that's
Yep. It's fulfilling the promise. It's fulfilling the promise of crypto and really the internet more generally. So, I appreciate the time. I appreciate Jeff and Alex for coming on the show and answering my questions as well as the audience questions. And it's been a lot of fun. So like I said, I wish you both the best of luck and hopefully we'll talk to each other soon.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Stay tuned.
Anytime.
Awesome. Take care.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.